She stood at the marble counter, her posture stiff yet oddly dignified, as if the world had taught her to expect judgment at every turn. Her hands gripped an old, cracked phone with such insistence it was as if the fragile device were a lifeline, tethering her to the only sense of control she had left. "I just want to see my balance," she said softly, almost apologetically, her voice quivering just slightly but holding a quiet determination that demanded attention despite its timidity. The soft hum of the air conditioning mingled with the distant clatter of coins from the teller's station, creating a rhythm that made her pulse thrum even faster. Her eyes, wide and alert, focused intently on the ATM screen before her. She knew she had to see it, and she knew she had to do it now. Behind her, a man shifted impatiently. He wore a suit so sharply tailored it could cut glass, polished leather shoes that gleamed under the bright overhead lights, and a smile that was all confidence and arrogance. The type of man who thrived on owning every room he entered. He leaned casually against the counter, one arm resting on the marble surface, watching her like a cat observing a mouse. A low, mocking chuckle escaped him. "Balance?" he asked, the word dripping with condescension. "This machine isn't for charity cases." The sound was loud, intentionally theatrical. Several patrons glanced toward them, whispering to one another, some stifling laughs, others shooting her sympathetic glances. But she didn't flinch. Her jaw tightened ever so slightly, her eyes refusing to leave the screen. A few people snickered, unable to resist the allure of a spectacle, a real-life drama unfolding in the middle of a normally quiet, sunlit banking hall. He continued, clearly enjoying the attention, his voice raising slightly, now performing for the small crowd. "Maybe you should try the food bank line instead," he added, his laughter echoing around the marbled walls. He thought he had her cornered, thought that humiliation would force her to retreat. But she stayed, unmoving, as if rooted by something stronger than fear. The hum of the air conditioning, the faint beeping of distant teller machines, the occasional rustle of paper, it all became a background to the most important moment of her life in this room. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pressed the screen, navigating her way through the prompts. The ATM responded slowly, each moment stretching endlessly, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. She could feel the millionaire's gaze on her back, sharp and predatory, waiting for the collapse he was convinced would come. His laughter had stopped momentarily, but the smirk remained, a silent predator anticipating the final strike. She felt a flush rise in her cheeks, but she refused to let it show. She had been underestimated too many times in her life. Today would not be one of those times. Around them, the room's attention tightened. A woman with a stroller shifted nervously, unsure if she should intervene or merely observe. A businessman checked his watch impatiently, glancing between the unfolding scene and his briefcase, but something about her quiet composure held his gaze. It was rare, this kind of fortitude, the kind that doesn't shout, that doesn't demand attention, yet commands it simply by existing. The millionaire's smirk faltered slightly as he leaned in, curious now. The story he had been telling himself, that this would be a moment of spectacle, was starting to unravel. The screen finally refreshed, loading the balance. Her eyes flicked up, not in triumph but in quiet anticipation. She knew the numbers would tell a story, and this story would speak louder than his laughter ever could. She swallowed the lump in her throat, feeling the weight of years pressing down, the years of quiet struggle, of careful management, of knowing the value of every single penny. She had grown up watching money slip through careless hands, had grown up learning that wealth without wisdom was meaningless. The screen blinked, calculating, pausing, teasing, and she held her breath, unwilling to look away. Behind her, the millionaire leaned closer, now truly intrigued. His laughter had vanished entirely, replaced by a curious, predatory interest. "Let's see it then," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else, as if anticipating a punchline. He imagined the numbers would be small, pathetic, the sort of figure that would confirm every stereotype he had rehearsed for the amusement of strangers. But the machine wasn't done calculating yet. It blinked again, refreshed once more, and the numbers emerged with a quiet, undeniable authority. Zeros stacked neatly, impossibly, elegantly. She had more money in that account than he could have imagined, more than he probably ever saw in any of his multiple accounts combined. And she had earned every single digit herself, quietly, without pomp, without spectacle. The room seemed to hold its breath as the realization settled in. The people who had been whispering moments ago now watched silently, mouths slightly agape, as the scene's balance of power shifted imperceptibly but irrevocably. The millionaire's jaw tightened, his eyes widening slightly as the realization hit him fully. This was not a woman to be mocked, and the simple act of checking a balance had revealed the truth with more force than any argument could. She exhaled softly, a sound almost imperceptible but full of relief. The tension she had carried in her shoulders, the rigid determination that had anchored her through years of subtle judgment, eased slightly. She felt a quiet satisfaction, the kind that comes not from proving someone wrong, but from quietly existing in a space they never thought you could occupy. Good, she murmured, almost to herself, as if the world around her no longer mattered. It's still there. She slipped the phone back into her worn leather bag with the care one might handle a delicate heirloom. She did not gloat. She did not shout. She merely existed, her quiet confidence speaking louder than any words could. The millionaire stepped back, suddenly unsure of his footing. His performance, which he had expected would be flawless, had been disrupted by something he had never accounted for. Competence, quiet power, and wealth wielded not for spectacle but for survival. The crowd, too, seemed to take a step back, collectively realizing that the story they had been watching was not one of shame or humiliation, but of understated triumph. She had walked into this room seeking nothing more than a simple confirmation of her balance, yet in doing so, she had revealed a strength, a quiet authority, that eclipsed any display of flamboyance the millionaire could muster. As she finally turned, her gaze met his directly for the first time. There was no malice, no need for confrontation, just a calm, unyielding sense of self. My father taught me to live quietly.